Okay, so now I'm at the point where I have most of my dark details put in. So I've got most of my shadow areas. I'm gonna add, this is gonna be one of my more detailed trees because it is up front. So I am gonna add a little bit more definition to it. So I'm gonna treat it a little bit like a cylinder. I have a light source that's hitting it. I have branches that come off of it, kind of every which direction. I'm not going to worry about drawing every single branch, and you can tell because it's a drawing with so many trees, if I throw in every little branch and every little limb, this is going to become really confusing. You're not going to be able to clearly tell what it even is that I'm drawing. So that's something I can add a few more of those little details at the end. You have to be careful with trees, bushes, things like that, that you don't get sucked into sort of trying to do every little detail right at first. You still want to treat this like we've treated everything else, where you're just looking at the overall shadows, the overall light, the value pattern, what's lighter, what's darker, what's sort of in the middle. And you want to keep everything really simple at first. That's going to help you a lot when you start to add more detail at the end. You kind of don't want to get sucked into too much of that. So once I have my dark values done, I'm going to add my light values. So this is kind of, we'll show you what this paper does. Normally that's the best we can do, right? We can just darken areas, we can't lighten them. What's nice about this is where there's accents or where there's brighter areas in this picture, I get to bring those in. So for example, I have right now some really strong light hitting the top of this roof on this barn. And so the light areas that I can really see this happening, I can add those details in on this drawing. So it's happening over here on this roof in a few spots too. And what you want to try to watch out for is when you use this white area, you want to use it in an area that's free of charcoal, ideally, or else they'll kind of start to blend and it'll get a little messy. And the way that you do that is you sort of have to pay attention to your values early on. Note everything that was a lighter value I have left open, because that way I can add this white pencil in very easily. So this barn, both these barns are gonna be sort of lighter in value. That doesn't mean I'm just gonna color them in completely though, because there's gonna be areas that I still have shadow. For example, the sides of the barn are going to be darker because that's kind of where that shadow is coming in. There's gonna be an edge of shadow up there. So I'm gonna start building it gradually, just like I do with everything else. But in general, they are so much lighter than any area surrounding them. And then there's sort of siding that comes in to make this look realistic. And there's areas along the roof that are going to be highlighted, and then areas along the roof that are not going to be as light because it's a tin roof. So I'm going to do the same thing over here, where there's going to be a few areas that have siding that are going to be lighter in detail, and a few areas that are going to be not quite as bright. So I'm going to layer that up and try not to blend the charcoal too much. So basically what I can do now is start to bring this in areas where I see highlights. So if there are any highlights on the trees, I can sort of add those in a few places. If there are branches that are super bright and I want to bring in a highlight on those branches. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to bring in definition on something that didn't have definition a few minutes ago. So what it's also going to do is I have a lot of areas of the sky that come in. It gets lighter sort of as it gets down to the edge of the trees, and I have a lot of clouds. So that's actually something that I can sort of bring in just lightly in a few areas to give that feeling or that illusion that we have a sky up top. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to leave spaces because the sky tends to get darker and bluer as it goes up. I have a lot of clouds right now. I've got clouds, I've got blue sky. I also don't want to get too sucked into that because it is really hard right now to paint in between or to draw in between every single one of these little branches. So another good rule of thumb with the white is that anywhere you add this contrast is going to draw the eye more. So it's going to be more of a focal point if we have added our white charcoal or white chalk or whatever it is you may have. So what we have to be careful of is that we don't add it everywhere. So this is another thing that we have to be really sort of, contained with. If I add it on all the trees, you aren't going to be able to tell which trees belong further back. However, if I keep adding it to the trees that are important, you'll be able to tell which trees are important in this drawing and where that light is going to hit those trees. It's something that I can also add in other places. So I'm going to work on that for a second and then I'll video another segment.